So, when you hear the name Starlink, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Probably satellite internet, right? Well, today we're talking about something way bigger than that. We're looking at a truly revolutionary technology that's changing everything: global communications, business, and yeah, even how wars are fought. This is the story of how one company built a web of power that literally wraps around our entire planet. Just take a look at this. To really get a sense of the scale we're dealing with, think about this for a second. Right now, Starlink satellites make up an incredible 65% of all active satellites orbiting the Earth. That's not just a big piece of the pie, it's almost the whole thing. And it all happened in just a few years. All right, so here's our game plan for this explainer. First up, we're going to get into the mind-blowing tech that makes this all work. Then, we'll see how it's completely transforming huge industries. After that, things get serious as we look at its surprising role on the battlefield. And finally, we'll tackle the tough questions and the trade-offs that come with all this power. Okay, let's dive right into the technology, because what makes Starlink such a game changer isn't just the sheer number of satellites floating up there, it's how they all talk to each other. The real secret sauce here is something called laser inter-satellite links, or LISLs for short. You can pretty much just picture satellites shooting laser beams at each other in orbit. This means data doesn't have to keep bouncing from space down to Earth and back up again. Instead, it just zips across this huge interconnected web of satellites in space. It's a massive mesh network above our heads. Yeah, so you can just throw out that old image of a single satellite dish aimed at one lonely satellite. What's really happening here is much more like a planet-sized spiderweb woven from pure light, wrapping the entire globe in a net of data. And this shows you just how complex it is. See, the network uses different kinds of laser links. You've got these permanent, nearby links that are always on, connecting satellites that are flying in the same direction. That's the backbone. But then you have these temporary crossing links. Now, these are way harder to pull off, but they create these amazing shortcuts in the network, which is how you get super low lag, even when data is traveling halfway across the world. Okay, so you have this incredible technology. How does that turn into a real-world business? Well, it's all about connecting the places and industries that were pretty much unreachable before. So who's actually using this? Well, beyond just people in rural areas, Starlink is a complete game changer for entire industries that operate at the edge. We're talking about giant cargo ships out in the middle of the ocean, commercial airlines flying at 35,000 feet, and emergency response crews in the middle of a disaster zone. All of these customers used to be stuck with slow, super unreliable, and crazy expensive internet. Not anymore. And wow, the adoption rate has just been explosive. As you can see right here, the subscriber base is growing at a wild pace. It hit 1 million in late 2022, and it's projected to shoot up to 10 million by early 2026. This isn't just steady growth, it's a total market takeover. So why is everyone jumping on board? The value proposition is really simple: speed. Old school satellites, they topped out around 150 megabits per second. Starlink can deliver more than double that. But, and this is a big but, there's a catch. Older services often give you unlimited data. Starlink's model is built on data caps, so you get way more speed, but you have to watch how much you use. And this is where our story takes a really serious turn. We've talked about the tech and the business, now we have to talk about global security. Because when you build the world's most advanced communication network, it's going to get used for things you probably never intended. This brings us to a really important concept: dual-use technology. These are technologies, just like Starlink, that are built for everyday civilian stuff, like streaming movies on a cruise ship, but can be easily adapted for military purposes. And that simple fact creates some huge political and ethical problems. This quote here from SpaceX President Gwynne Shotwell really gets right to the heart of the problem. She said, "We did not intend for Starlink to be weaponized." The company built a tool to connect the world, but once it was out there in the middle of a war, it became something else entirely. And the Russo-Ukrainian War is the ultimate case study. Starlink became absolutely essential. After Russia took out traditional communication lines, it became the communication backbone for Ukraine's military. It kept soldiers and citizens connected, but it also enabled critical military operations for things like drones and weapon systems. And it's important to remember, this wasn't just a donation. Governments like the US, the UK, and Poland actually helped pay for its deployment. So all of this leads us to a really crucial point. What happens when this incredibly powerful technology, something that's now critical infrastructure for whole countries, is controlled by a single private company and ultimately by a single person? Well, the first trade-off is all about the money. For all its incredible performance, relying on Starlink can get expensive. For big industries like maritime shipping, switching over to these capped data plans can mean paying up to 3 times more than they used to for the older, unlimited services. And this dependence creates a whole host of challenges. You've got the rising costs from those capped plans, you've got uneven reliability, because service can still be affected by bad weather, or network congestion, or even deliberate throttling. And then there's the biggest one of all, monopolistic control. Decisions that affect a country's national security can be made in a corporate boardroom instead of by elected leaders. Which really brings us to this fundamental question, doesn't it? When a private company holds the keys to a nation's ability to communicate during a war, or for an entire industry to even function, who is actually in charge? The company or the people and governments that depend on it? You know, in the end, Starlink is the perfect example of technology moving way faster than our ability to create rules for it. And it forces us to ask a really difficult and very urgent question. As we move forward, who should be writing the rules for our shared future? The innovators who build these incredible things, or the societies that come to depend on them?